So we have a new kind of water dance this morning, the Channel Hokey Cokey, I was thinking. You know, you send the first one out, it comes straight back, in, out,
That's
in,
right.
out. I mean, it's a shambles, isn't it? And this was hugely predicted.
So, look, I think this is a real mess. And also it was, you know, made worse by the fact the Prime Minister gave a speech earlier in the summer saying this was the new flagship, one in, one out. It was to great fanfare. Now, 3 months later, barely 3 months later, you're seeing these scenes. And actually, the gross numbers, I think something like 11,000 have come in and maybe 40 have been sent back. And now
42,
just one person...
I think,
42, now it's 41 because this man has come back. So
he's going again, though.
What, they're sending him back, are they?
And how,
So
much,
That's the hokey-cokey.
how much is that costing? I mean, if any of us wanted to catch a flight to Paris today, it would cost us hundreds of pounds. This is turning into an expensive farce.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy to be the Labour supporter on the panel
Yeah.
this morning with the headlines, is it? Look, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, I am sure, will be tearing her hair out this morning, and I imagine she'll be saying to her team, get this guy up and get him out of the country. This is making an absolute mockery of this scheme, which government ministers were on your programme a few weeks ago saying was going to be a really good way of dealing with this problem of illegal boat crossing.
So the problem... I mean, and, you know, in the interest of fairness, Rishi Sunak said he would stop the boats. And the fact that the actual crossings got worse was very damaging for the Conservative government, among other things.
Yeah.
So for the Prime Minister to have seen what happened to Rishi Sunak and then to say we're going to have one in, one out, for him not to deliver on that, I think is a big fail.
OK, and I know Jonathan wants to come in a bit more, but the government's arguing that actually it's the mess of the whole system left by the Conservatives that's causing these problems. And I guess people are determined to come, risk their lives crossing the Channel, then you might expect they might try again. I think it's the speed of it, isn't it, Jonathan, that's so staggering. Coming here in August, being deported relatively quickly in September, and then coming back by the same method, risking the life again. It makes you... How on earth could that have got through the system? Although we could argue at least he was recognised and picked up.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the viewers will be spluttering over their cornflakes this morning at this story, not least because apparently this man is claiming that he felt unsafe in France. I mean, France is a safe...
In Paris?
Well,
yeah.
Well, I think he felt unsafe just from his report, don't know if this is true or not, because of having got involved with the trafficking gangs. It was them that he felt fearful of having been sent back. So who knows what the truth is, but it was obviously decided he didn't get asylum here in the
But he doesn't have the right to be
So the decision to send him should have been complete.
You can blame the Tories, you can blame the last government, but the Prime Minister made this a flagship policy in the summer. He said, OK, we've had all these issues, this is how I'm going to deal with the problem. And now for it to be unravelled after 3 months
But they never
is
had
a
an
serious
answer to the
political
question.
problem.
I mean, I know that we've posed this question in countless interviews that we did about this scheme in the months running up to it. What's to stop them coming back again? I wrote that in articles that I write from my newspaper column. What's to stop them coming back? And no government minister ever had a coherent reply.
And now this is the result.
And now they've come back. Messages this morning, as you say, people frothing over their cornflakes. Ian has emailed to say, everyone, apart from Sir Keir Starmer, knew this wasn't going to work. The only way to solve it is to use the Navy to turn them back. A lot of people say that. Andy on email says, I cannot believe how stupid our politicians are. Where do they think these people go when they're sent back to France? The French just let them wander around, so they're bound to try and come back. And there's nothing to stop this guy from coming back a third time, is there?
Come back
absolutely.
repeatedly,
But you've got to put in place a really tough system that these people, if they do return, will be sent back to France. And that, in the end, has got to be the way in which you deter people, that if people arrive here illegally, that when their applications are processed, if they do not have the right to be here, they will be returned.
But it's not a deterrent because he's come back again.
I know, but you've got to... people have got... that's why today the Home Secretary has got to show that we're not standing for this. And this man will be...
Your question was... so I saw the head of UK Border Force. I think he was at a House of Commons committee.
Yeah.
And they asked... I think it was Karen Bradley, Dame Karen Bradley, who was a Tory MP, asked him exactly this question. So what happens if they want to come back? And I don't know whether you've got a clip of the answer, but his answer was not very convincing.
No.
What did he say?
Well, he didn't say anything. He just his sort of voice just sort of trailed away.
None of them had an answer.
And I was very surprised at that because generally they're very well briefed. If they're going to go to a House of Commons committee, these people are very well briefed, and he just didn't have an answer.
Well, I suppose the solution is it was facial recognition, wasn't it, that picked him up, and he's now being sent back. So, but Richard's question about how much all of this is costing is going to infuriate people. Do you have any sense of what the cost will be?
Well, the whole thing will be costing us a fortune. I mean, it definitely is costing us a fortune. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the Labour government scrapped the Conservatives' Rwanda scheme, because they just thought the costs of that were sky high and actually weren't going to send many people to Rwanda.
But it was going to be a deterrent. I mean, Rwanda had its critics, but it did have a deterrent effect. I mean, that was the point of it. That was what we were trying to push. Whereas at the moment, there isn't a deterrent at all. And these people can keep coming back.
The government would argue that the deterrent is that they will process people's applications and then return them to their countries of origin or to France if they don't have the right to be here. The problem with the previous system was because you essentially just left people in sort of limbo in these hotels, saying that at some point they might be sent to Rwanda, and it was only 1% of them.
No, but some of them. But there was evidence. I mean, it was scrapped. But there was evidence that people were actually avoiding coming to Britain. I mean, I think the Irish, I remember, complaining about this because they didn't want the threat of Rwanda. That was so. It did have a deterrent effect, I think.
The other half of the problem is not just that once these people are sent back to France, sent back to Paris, there's nothing to stop them walking out of the hospital that they're placed in, coming back to the French coast and trying again, which is what's happened on this occasion. It's the fact that we haven't smashed the gangs. The gangs are running riot along the North French coast.
And he blames this individual, the gangs, for his fear to try again. So it's not working for anybody.
But again, I mean, that was the government. I mean, they've sort of built the rod, for their own back, because it wasn't the public. We didn't say smash the gangs. It was the government. It was the Labour Party, the Prime Minister.
Well, I think we all want the gangs smashed.
Of course we do, but that was the campaign he said.
But it's the right policy objective.
But nothing has happened. But when you say smash the gangs, what are you doing?
But it's the right thing to go after these criminal gangs who are operating across Europe and to cooperate with the various European security.
But how do we do that?
We're not getting any results. Look, a lot of people, I'm sure I speak for most people watching this morning, will say, how is it that an institution as huge and wealthy and powerful as the British government and the French government can't deal with a bunch of criminals on a fairly short strip of coastline in northern France? How come two governments can't actually put the resources together to break it up?
Well, the question
in a week.
So you mentioned the French government. There's always been questions about how committed they are.
Oh, absolutely.
To actually dealing with the problem, because I think in France a lot of them think, well, that's the British problem, and we don't really want to help them. And what I think is a big scandal is that we've been giving the French government something like 800 million over 10 years. And it's very unclear to me what they've actually done to make this problem...
the number of migrants who came to the UK so far this year in small boats has exceeded the total of 306,816 for the whole of last year. So more people have arrived across the Channel this year up until now than in the whole of the previous year. So it's getting worse.
One of the things the French say, and this is what the former Home Secretary James Cleverly was saying saying to me on a podcast that I do, funnily enough, he was saying one of the issues is there's a sort of pull factor. So the French claim there's a pull factor to the UK. Because often when people get here, they can sort of disappear into our black economy. They can disappear into working in these unregulated jobs where nobody checks their credentials.
I mean, there must be a pull factor, because otherwise they would stay in France.
And that's why the government are looking at this idea of a digital ID, that you have to show to prove that you've got the right to work here. I know a lot of people think that they're critical of that, but that's that's the rationale behind it. But so unless we get better at dealing with this abuse and exploitation in our labour market, people are going to want to come here.
How do we get better? Because when the deal was announced, one of the things that was kind of being lauded about it was the fact that for the first time there seemed to be cooperation between the French and the British governments. That hadn't been achieved. I know you've been trying, but it was lauded that this deal was the sign of a new kind of process, but it hasn't really delivered, has it?
No, well, look, I mean, this is one example of it not working. I mean, you need to look at it in the round. And as I say, I suspect the Home Secretary today will be getting a grip of this, and will he wanting to show that this man is being returned?
Well, shall I tell you something?
Yeah.
Last night, well, obviously I knew we'd be doing this story. I looked back at my diaries. I first presented this show when Piers Morgan went on holiday in 2017. And do you know what one of the items was on the show? The small boats.
Right.
Yeah. We were talking about it in 2017. Here we are, 2025.
8 years
and
later.
the problem is bigger than it was then.
I think people actually want a more drastic solution. And I
What
think
would
at some
that
point...
drastic solution be?
I think
Because I think you're right. Everyone says your frustration. What is it that we can't stop?
Well, what I hear...
But what is the drastic solution?
is a military intervention, like using the Royal Navy or using some sort of...
Like the Greeks
But
did.
how does that...
Exactly.
But what does that mean, though? Does
that means you've got people, patrolling.
Hang on. But yeah,
and they're
no,
sending them back.
No, I get that.
Don't
But
you get an international waters issue? That's what... Because I've raised that before. Well, there you go,
There are
you
all sorts
see.
of legal
There you go.
issues. But that's what people want.
Yeah, no, but what does it mean?
So the government can hem itself around with lots of legal issues, but you're not dealing with the problem. And
So is
actually,
that what
ultimately,
you would
people...
do?
Well,
Would
they've
you
got to look
put-
at they've got to look at every solution, because as Richard pointed out, we've been talking about this for years, and nothing seems to be... It's getting worse.
But what
What's wrong with that idea, Jonathan?
But what does it actually mean? Does it mean, like, your ships are going to torpedo?
No, they don't want to torpedo.
Well, then how do they stop it then?
They're going to basically prevent them from landing.
How?
And push them back.
Well,
They don't- how?
Because they're big
There's got to be...
They use blocking, according to what I've read, the Greek Navy uses blocking tactics. They use their vessels to block the boats from coming around, and they forcibly turn them back, so they have to go back. They don't fire on torpedo them.
They don't blow them up, no.
I have to say, we've had a very cynical one here from Heather on email. Morning, Heather. She said, well, maybe this migrant who's come back has spent his £2,000, because we give them £2,000, don't we, when they go back? And he's come back for a top-up.
I mean, that's going to drive people crackers, isn't it?
At what point do they get because at what point do they get the £2,000 once they go back?
They get it. They get it as part of the resettlement money when they go back.
Of course, but that's a fair question then.
Yeah, it is.
If he's got to
They
do
get
that
it
back.
again. They come back for the top. I mean, look, this has got to be...
Hey.
And the government have got to put out a statement on all of this today to explain what's
But
going
I
on.
think the first sign of madness, if you're repeating the same thing and expecting different results...
Exactly.
And they've got to change tack, because if this is an issue at the time of the election or near the election, I think it'll do for...
Well, I would agree. I would have thought if this is going to happen again, obviously, it's demonstrative proof that it can happen. What everybody predicted would happen has just happened.
Sure.
Therefore, as you say, it will happen again, and at some point they're going to have to abandon the scheme, aren't they? Because
They're going to have to do
The
something
government
else.
has put out a statement, just going to say, it says a Home Office spokesman late last night said, we will not accept any abuse of our borders. We will do everything in our power to remove those without the legal right to be here. Individuals who are returned under the pilot and subsequently attempt to re-enter the UK illegally will be removed. But I suspect Shabana Mahmood will come up with something... It'll still be words, probably, but it will come out with something much stronger, wouldn't you have thought today, Jonathan?
She's going to have to. She's going to have to, because we all know that confidence, as we've heard from the comments that have come in, is completely drained away from the government's hand when it comes to the handling of this.
We've got more important things to talk about, including the grooming gang scandal and Sir Keir Starmer appearing to back an inquiry into Prince Andrew staying at Windsor Lodge. But I do want to get this in before we run out of time, because I found this extraordinary.
Oh, yes.
A woman was waiting for a bus in London. She was finishing a cup of coffee, and the bus was coming towards her, and she thought, right, well, if I get on the bus, I'm going to spill it. And, I might spill it on the seats, on the floor, people might sit
Over
up.
herself?
Or myself. Yeah. So she lifted off the lid, and she poured the few millilitres of cold coffee that were remaining down the drain at the side of the road. 3 council enforcement officers who were watching her immediately pounced, said, that's an offence, you're not allowed to dispose of waste down a public drain, and she was fined £150, right? £150. As you were saying...
On the spot?
On the spot. As you were saying, Kate, she could have gone into an office or a pub or a restaurant and poured it down the toilet or down the sink. It would have gone into exactly the same place, the same drain, and it wouldn't have been an offence. No. Because she did it on the road. £150
I think many people won't know that that's illegal. They sort of see the drain
and they
as
think
the
that's
safe space to dispose of things.
Well, so, and also, I mean, when we look at the context of policing and law enforcement and, shoplifting and all the rest of it, I know they're different jurisdictions, but this is going to drive people crazy, yes.
Well,
it's absurd.
Isn't it pathetic, pettifoging nonsense? Yeah. And I hope... And in fact, I don't know which council it is.
It's a great phrase.
It's Richmond. It's Richmond Council.
Well, I mean, I don't know who the leader of Richmond Council is, but they should give that woman her money back.
Well, actually, that has happened because she had the guts to appeal.
Richmond
Council actually said, look, it's likely that had this case gone all the way through the official appeal route, the notice would have been rescinded. On this occasion, the council therefore decided to cancel the fixed penalty notice. At least she made a fuss, right? Yeah. We remain committed to protecting Richmond's waterways and are reviewing advice on the disposal of liquids in the public place. But it's the same as putting it down the loo.
And also, I mean, why go through the appeal? Why does she have to go through all of that stuff?
What does that mean?
And for weeks to get her money back.
We are reviewing advice on the... What was it again? The disposal...
Can you roll back on the water cue, please? Yeah. Have a look. We are
reviewing advice on the disposal of
liquids in the public.
What does that mean? There's going to be a review. Can I be in charge of this review for them? We'll have a big inquiry on it. They can pay me lots of money for it, and we'll do an inquiry on that.
Excuse me, if we're talking about pollution, which is effectively the word here, surely a dog weeing on the pavement is a little bit more polluting than somebody pouring, an egg cup full of coffee down the drain.
Jonathan's right. This is just a job's worth, council people.
This country is... I don't know what's becoming of us. I really, really, really don't.
I know.
My granddad would have a fit.
I know. I've poured things down the drain, like that. Well, hang on, don't arrest me.
I pour something... I drink a Diet Coke as I'm walking along.
Yeah.
And when I get to a shop, I pour it down the drain.
Yeah, because you don't want to spill it.
I've just confessed to being a criminal.
Well, apparently someone suggested it would be better off putting it in the bin, but I think that poor council worker that's got to empty the bin, get coffee all over them.
That's right.
I think I'm doing a good thing.
Exactly.
No, you're a hardened criminal, Kate.
I know well, many in the castle and Traitors think I am, so why not just go along with it? Shall we talk the latest twist and turn in the grooming? I mean, 4 survivors have now quit. They've said that they will not consider to returning to be part of this process unless Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips resigns. This does feel like a mess, because you all know, Jonathan, Jess Phillips has campaigned so hard for abuse of all sorts and for, women that have been attacked, assaulted and groomed. How have we got into a place where she is the enemy at the moment?
Well, I mean, this inquiry is probably one of the most important inquiries of recent times. And it's absolutely vital that it commands the confidence of the survivors and the victims, because we want this inquiry to go ahead. The Prime Minister wants this inquiry to go ahead. It has to look into all of these issues, and they're very sensitive issues, but it should not feel any sense of reticence about properly looking into them all. I hope they can find a way through on this, where the survivors who have spoken out can be given confidence that this inquiry will properly investigate all the issues that need to be investigated. If I was Keir Starmer, I'd be getting these people in today to talk to them about it, to work out how to get this back up and running.
I'm afraid they've created this mess themselves, the government, because they were dragged effectively kicking and screaming to the point where we were going to have an inquiry. Of course they didn't want it. Jess Phillips was actually quite, as she always is, quite adamant that that wasn't the route to go down. And then I saw clips of her again in Parliament yesterday, and she's a very belligerent, combative.
She got the tone wrong, didn't she?
Yeah, she's a combative minister.
But she's very passionate about the issue.
She is passionate.
She's got many years of experience of it.
But she was very combative, and I thought she didn't address the issue of the actual victims.
The victims.
I don't think her tone was very conciliatory.
But she feels that she is somebody who has spent her whole professional life supporting victims and survivors of these heinous crimes. And she felt that there are now politicians in her view, I suspect, kind of jumping on a bandwagon to make...
It's not the politicians.
No, but she sort of feels that she's been trying to She feels like she's been trying to deal with this all of her life, and then for you know the way Parliament works. All of a sudden, a bunch of people jump in Parliament who's expressed no interest in the topic before.
Her belligerence towards MPs, I can totally accept. It's the actual victims who are asking for her to go. And that suggests to me that she's got the tone wrong.
No, I understand.
And hasn't reached out to them effectively.
Yeah, I understand that. And that's why I would say that, as I said, I think Keir Starmer has got to open up direct discussions with these survivors.
He has to.
And
that's
try and move this forward.
Absolutely. We are speaking, actually, to another survivor, another victim of abuse, who is actually in agreement with those who are saying it should be wider, not just focused on the grooming gangs, because she's worried that otherwise other victims will fall through. So the debate, you can see it's quite nuanced, really, because in this group of poor, incredibly courageous survivors who have fought to get this looked at and dealt with, there are going to be lots of different views. aren't there?
But in any
And that's part of the
inquiry,
challenge.
in any inquiry, Kate, you've got to somehow limit the focus. They can't take the whole situation, and because otherwise we'd be here for years. So there's got to be some limitation of scope and time looking at this. And when you do that, inevitably there'll be people, unfortunately, whose cases don't fit into the scope of the inquiry.
I remember, rightly or wrongly, the reason the government were refusing this inquiry originally, because they were pointing out there had been a previous inquiry set up by Theresa May, which had looked into a lot of these issues in broader terms, and the government's point at that juncture was not all of the recommendations have yet been implemented. I think that was obviously a mistake in retrospect that the government went down that line, but nonetheless, that would have been, I think, that may perhaps on the survivors' point that you're talking to today, maybe the government would argue, well, some of those issues were looked at by the
Well,
previous...
yeah, Jonathan makes a point. It started off very wide. People didn't accept that. They wanted a narrower focus.
Yeah.
And now we've got a narrow focus. People inevitably are saying, well, actually, we should have a wider focus again. So you can't... It's very difficult to get that right.
Just before we move on, I want to make a clarification, just to be absolutely clear on this, about the one-in, one-out scheme and this £2,000. The one-in, one-out scheme doesn't pay migrants to leave. It's a completely forcible scheme. I think the confusion arose because foreign criminals, migrants, are being offered £2,000 to agree to be deported back to their home.
That's the other scheme.
That's what's going on. So we had a slight muddle there. Sorry for that.
That's true.
Make that clear.
That's true.
It's a forcible scheme. Where are we? That one. It's a forcible scheme. They don't get paid £2,000 to go back to France, but they are being offered credit cards with pre-charged with £2,000 if they agree to be deported
to go on again to their home country.
That's
And they can come back.
Clear.
I mean, we don't know what's going to happen if they come back.
Well,
they get the money and come back.
Right.
What happens then?
Well, we have to talk about you.
Oh, crikey.
Because
okay.
you're still with us. I mean, basically...
You're still with us.
In every sense, not just on Celebrity Traitors, but in any sense, I'm just about still with you.
If you didn't see Traitors last night, then you might want to leave the room now or turn the sound down or make a cup of tea, because we're going to talk about it, so it might spoil it if you're looking to look at it a bit later today. But basically...
I was up for murder.
Yes.
This doesn't spoil the whole show, because the big drama comes later on. But I didn't get murdered.
No.
So that's a relief.
So you're
that's
still
a relief
there.
for me. Yeah.
The issue here is, with our Kate, is that they don't trust her. Now, we know, don't we, that Kate is the...
These two people, we don't trust her either.
No, but why, they're not going to trust anyone in there.
Kate, you know what I would say to that? I'm flabbergasted. Flabbergasted at that.
You are the gospel truth teller. You are one of the straightest talking people that I know. We know that.
But the winners always do the dirty at the end, don't they? They're the ones who are trusted.
Yeah.
And then at the end. Yeah. So why would you trust any of them?
Well, let's just
no, but it's not about trusting. But the thing is, there are lots of people in the show that are sharing their thoughts because they totally believe in someone. Yeah. But because they're so suspicious of me, I can't get a loop in. I've got no mates. I mean, that's the problem, that we, as journalists, that you look at the facts and then you put both sides of an argument. So I'm talking myself in and out who might be a traitor all the time. Yeah, very challenging. It's a great game.
But this is back to the old days of television, where the nation came together. How many people do you say are watching it?
So, well, it's huge. I mean, what they call consolidated figures, you're talking 12 million.
Wow.
12 million. It's like,
wow.
it is.
But, and we can get all, teary-eyed when people, but there are only 3 channels.
Yeah, that's right.
I was hosting an event for nurses last night, incredible event, with amazing people doing wonderful things that are genuinely changing the lives of the nation. And they came up to me and said, I'm flabbergasted, or someone's going to be recruited. They want to talk about that. Which is wonderful, isn't it, when something draws everybody together?
No, it is good. It is good that lots of people...